Hello again and welcome to another Warlord Wednesday. In today's episode, we shall once again be casting our ever critical eye over another bolt action unit. In our crosshairs today is quite possibly one of the most popular and well-known tanks of the war. Beloved by the community and a common sight on the tabletop, this German heavy tank strikes fear into the hearts of its enemies. I am of course talking about the Panzer V, better known as the Panther tank. And so without further ado, let's take a look at the good, the bad and the ugly of this big cat. As is tradition, let us begin with a brief overview of this unit's cost, weapons, damage value, and special rule. Like with most units in bolt action, the points cost of the Panther is going to vary depending on what unit veterancy you take it as. If it is inexperienced, it is 284 points. If you take it as regular, it will cost you 355 points. And if you take it as veteran, it will cost you an eye-watering 426 points. In my opinion, there is very little reason to take the Panther as inexperienced. Sure, you do get a very big points decrease, but it's already an expensive unit. Taking it and then giving it a low leadership, so it's not going to do as it's told, and then giving it a -1 to hit modifier because of it being inexperienced, it's a recipe for disaster. You might be saving a few points, but that unit is worth nothing if it spends the entire game doing nothing. For most players, I think that taking the Panther as a regular unit is a sensible choice. It's still expensive, but you have just enough wiggle room left in your list to take a well-balanced army without having to cut too many corners. Having said that, I do think there is a argument to be made for a veteran Panther. I know that a lot of people are going to disagree with me on that, but hear me out. If you take a veteran Panther, it means that it ignores any pins caused by weapons that can't damage it. So if you hit it with a pen +2 weapon and you can't physically penetrate its armor, it doesn't take a pin. A regular vehicle on a 4+ ignores that pin, but on a 1 to 3 it takes it, but a veteran never takes that pin. Now if you only ever intended to take a Panther, then this is probably 70 odd points you don't want to spend. But if you were already thinking about taking a Tiger 1, for example, which at regular with a Pintle MMG costs 410 points, well, 16 points more, you can get a vehicle with similar armor, as we'll see later, with the same main gun, except for this time it can't be pinned out or made combat ineffective by someone just slinging HE shots at it. Like I said, it is a niche situation and it does depend on what else you were thinking of putting in your list and how much you were willing to spend on a big tank anyway, but it is definitely something to consider. But overall, regular is probably what most people want to do with this thing. Now we mentioned that the Panther has some pretty big guns. Let's take a look at its weapons. As standard, it comes equipped with one turret-mounted super heavy anti-tank gun. That is pen +7 with a 3-inch large template. That is a lot of punch packed onto this weapon. It's also got a coaxial MMG and a forward-facing hull-mounted MMG. Now you can't swap out any of these weapons, they are fixed, but you do have one option. You can add a Pintle MMG for 15 points. This gives the Panther 3 medium machine guns, and considering that you benefit from the German machine gun special rule, it would give the Panther 18 machine gun shots each turn if you want it to, as well as giving it a bit of protection from air with that Pintle weapon giving it flak. You would have to be careful about using the pin tool and becoming open tops and getting pinned, of course. But there are going to be those times when trying to get one shot with a super heavy AT gun, you might only hit on like a 6 or something. It might not be worth going for it. But hitting on 6s with 3 MMGs, there's a lot of options, a lot of potential there to generate a decent amount of hits. If it were me, I would pay for that pin tool. It's one of those things where you're already buying an expensive tank. There's no point in cheaping out at the last possible moment. How I would approach affording it is build the rest of your list, and if you get towards the end and you've got 15 to 20 points left over and you're thinking what you could squeeze in, well, rather than trying to rearrange the list or take a cheap unit just for the sake of it, stick a Pintle MMG on the Panther. That's probably a good use of the points. Despite it being known as a heavy tank, under the bolt action rules, the Panther has a damage value of 9+, which makes it a medium tank. This is still in its own right very durable, but when you combine this with the Panther's special rule, which is heavy frontal armor, when enemy units are shooting at the front arc of the vehicle, it actually has a damage value of 10+. So when you're shooting at the front, it's 10+, but on the sides and rear, it counts as 9+, and the usual penetrative modifiers would apply: +1 for shooting the side, +2 for shooting the rear. This makes the Panther somewhere in between a medium and a heavy tank. It's the link between the Panzer IV and the Tiger. One more special rule for the Panther: it does benefit from the Tiger Fear rule, meaning it is going to start causing leadership problems for your opponent if it gets up close and personal. So that covers the general information on the Panther, but now let's lift up the rock and get into that deep dive. Let's look at what makes this a good unit and some of its weaknesses. I believe that the Panther's greatest strength is it allows German players pseudo heavy armor. If you can keep that front armor and that heavy frontal plating towards the enemy's main AT, the main threat, then you will essentially have a heavy tank all game, but you won't have paid for a heavy tank. Most German heavy tanks are around 400 points or way more, but the Panther is 355 regular, as we said. This means that you get all the benefits of a heavy German vehicle without having to pay the ridiculous points cost. It is still a very expensive unit, but it's much more likely that you'll be able to squeeze a Panther into your army and still be able to maintain a decent number of dice. Like in a standard sort of 1,000 point 12 dice game, you'll probably be able to keep 9 or 10 dice and get a Panther. If you start going for a Tiger or a Tiger 2, you'll be lucky to get 7 or 8 dice without downgrading all of your units to basically inexperienced chaff, at which point you're probably just padding your list out with units that aren't really contributing anything. So the Panther, I feel, is the heaviest tank that Germans can field and still have a well-rounded, viable list. On top of this, I don't think it can be overstated how much potential that super heavy AT gun has. I use my Tiger all the time, and I use a Flak 88 all the time as well, and having a super heavy AT is a big deal. It does suffer from the same problem that a lot of one-shot weapons have in bot action, which is get one shot, there's no rerolls. If you miss, you miss, and it's not doing anything that turn, but you're less likely to miss. This is because a super heavy AT's range is 84 inches. That means its half range is 42 inches. This essentially means that unless you're firing at a very distant target, in the vast majority of times you fire this weapon, you are going to be within your half range. That is one of the most common to hit modifiers eliminated. At that point, really you're just looking at cover. And the most common kind of cover is light cover, soft cover. So most games when you fire your super heavy, it's going to be hitting on a 4+, presuming you didn't move. Now, there might be times where your opponent goes down, and there might be times when you're forced to move, but you always have slightly better odds of hitting with that super heavy AT because your half range is so massive. This gives you another advantage in tank duels. If you're going up against standard medium tank with a medium AT gun, a Sherman, a T-34, anything like that, then you are all the time going to be in your half range. And they almost all the time are going to be at long range. And if they try and move to get into half range, well, then they suffer the movement penalty. And you could always move back and just kite them around the board. Sure, you will suffer a movement penalty then, but it will still give you a better advantage. You'll still be hitting better than that enemy vehicle because they're going to be moving plus long range plus light cover, so that's 6s. Your Panther will be just moved and light cover, so you're hitting on 5s. Essentially what I'm saying here is super heavy AT guns always, well, not always, most of the time are hitting one better, and they always have an advantage to hit over regular guns that are often coming back at them. Unfortunately, the Panzer V does have a couple of big drawbacks. Whilst its points cost is relatively cheap in comparison to German heavy armor, it is still a very expensive unit. If you compare it to Allied heavy armor, like the Churchill, that thing is almost 100 points cheaper. And it is a proper heavy tank. It's not just heavy on the front, it's heavy on the front, on the sides, on the top. It's heavy all round. Sure, it hasn't got the same firepower, but it is much cheaper for a better defensive profile. If you then compare the Panther to what else you could get in your German motor pool for the same or cheaper cost, you do start to find it a bit harder to justify putting in your list. You could get a medium Panzer III with a medium AT gun and a Puma heavy armored car, same cost as a Panther. You could get a Panzer IV with a heavy anti-tank gun and a 222 armored car for cheaper than a Panther. And in the case with both pairs of those vehicles, you are getting arguably a comparable amount of firepower whilst also getting an extra dice in the bag. And having a good amount of dice in your list is key in bolt action. But the true Achilles heel of the Panzer V is its top armor. Because you're not a heavy tank, you're a pseudo heavy tank. And if someone hits your top armor with a medium mortar, the most common source of HE in the game, you cannot ignore the D3 pins that stacks on you. Because it's pen +2, +1 for your top armor, that can penetrate. You can't roll the 4+ to see if you can ignore it. You literally have to wear those pins. And the moment that your 355 point tank or 370 point tank, if you've gone for the pintle, starts getting pinned up, it's going to become way less effective. No word of a lie, I have seen this happen firsthand. Me and my brother were in a doubles game, and we both thought it'd be cool to bring our big cats. I brought my Tiger, he brought his Panzer V. In the same turn, we both got hit by drop shots from HE. I got hit by a light howitzer, he got hit by a medium mortar. I got to roll the 4+ for my Tiger to ignore the pins, and I did, and my Tiger was able to operate fine for the rest of the game. My brother couldn't ignore the pins from the medium mortar, and whilst it didn't do any damage, he did take 3 pins. And then there was a whole kerfuffle where he failed a rally test, and it basically took his big tank out of the game for 2 turns. I'm sure my brother had saved about 40 points over myself with the Tiger. But my Tiger operated the entire game, and his Panzer V didn't do anything for 2 turns. So overall, the Panther is a very powerful unit with some good special rules, a big AT gun, and lots of DACA. If you're looking for a budget heavy tank, it definitely fills that niche. However, you need to be aware that it is not a true heavy tank, and a savvy opponent will take steps to try and exploit this weakness. But whatever you want to say about the Panther, it is one of the coolest tanks in the game, and that alone might be enough to run it. But of course, all of this is just like my opinion, man. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. What is your favorite big tank? Are you team Panther, or do you prefer to go something even bigger like a Tiger 1 or maybe even a Tiger 2? If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to smash that like button and also subscribe to never miss an episode. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian glory hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and patrons. You guys are amazing. Truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full-time without the incredible and generous support of my members. So thank you guys so much. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreons. These are the War Masters, and they have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a big shout out to Bon Vert, Mad Larkin, Marcus Roberts, Mark Panconi, RJ Scorpion, Swordfish Trombone, John Stubbs, Nick Walsh, Diesel Fox, and August Varney. Thank you guys so much. Your incredible generosity is a massive part of how I'm able to do Mordian Glory full time, and it is a big driving force behind the channel. But I hope you all enjoyed today's video. Thank you for watching, and of course, as always, I'll see you guys next time.